This is you right now. You are standing in the East Room of the White House. The floor is marble, the ceiling is gold. There are flags on either side of a podium and a room full of people in their best clothes, and every single one of them is looking at you. Your uniform is overly pressed. Your boots are polished. Someone spent an hour on those boots this morning, and it was not you, because your hands shake too much now to do it right. The president is saying your name. He is reading from a paper. He is saying words like valor and gallantry and conspicuous bravery. And the room is nodding along, and some people near the back are crying, tears of joy. Many parents are praying for this kind of moment for their sons. You are not happy. You are not crying. You are just still. You are somewhere else entirely. You are in the dirt. You are 19 months ago. You are in a place where the air smells like burning and copper, and you are screaming a name that no one here knows, and the sound coming back to you is not applause. It is gunfire. The president steps toward you. He lifts the ribbon. He places the medal around your neck. The room applauds. The medal is cold against your chest. You nod. You shake his hand. You look at the cameras. And the whole time, behind your eyes, those moments is playing again. All of it, from the beginning. But the question is, how did you become this? How will you be receiving honors from the president with a straight face?
You were not a hero when this starts. You were 22 years old and you were from a town most people cannot find on a map. You joined the military because your older brother joined. You joined because there was not much else you could do. You joined because the recruiter came to your school and shook your hand and looked you in the eye and said, "You look exactly what we need." And nobody had ever said anything like that to you before. Basic training is hard in the way that all hard things are hard when you have never been through anything hard before. Your feet blister, your shoulders burn. You cry once, in the dark, quietly, into your sleeve. Nobody sees it. You are fine. You get good at the things they teach you, faster than many others. Your sergeant notices. He does not say anything nice about it. He just puts you in the front more often, and that is how you know. You deploy. The first few months are not what the movies told you. It is heat and waiting, and the particular boredom of guarding things that never get attacked. You play cards. You eat food from pouches. You call home on a satellite phone and tell your mother everything is fine. And it is mostly true. You make friends the way soldiers make friends, fast, close, without choosing to. One day you do not know them, 3 weeks later you would die for them without thinking. You do not know why that is. It just is. Reyes is from San Antonio. He does impressions of the officers, and they are so accurate it is dangerous. He keeps a photograph in his chest pocket of his daughter, who is 3 years old and has her father's eyes. Kowalski does not talk much. When he does, it means something. He is the best shot in the unit, and he knows it, and he does not say a word about it. Hendricks joined 2 weeks after you. He is younger than you, and he does not look old enough to be here, and on some days, neither do you. These are your people. You do not think about losing them. You think about going home together. You have already planned the bar you are going to sit in, the first beer, the booth by the window. That is where your head lives, in that bar, in that future.
But that morning it happens. It is a Tuesday. You remember that because Reyes always complains about Tuesdays. He has a whole speech about how Tuesday has always been the most stressful day and how nothing good ever come out of the day. You are all laughing about it while you gear up. Kevlar, rifle, radio, gloves. You are all on a routine patrol. A village road you have walked 6 times before. Intel says quiet. The briefing is short. Your sergeant runs through it fast because there is nothing unusual to say. You walk out into the morning and the air is already hot. Not warm, hot. The sun is low and orange and the shadows are long and thin across the road. You are third in the line. The first kilometer is normal. Dust, dogs barking behind a wall, a kid on a roof watching you go by. You wave. He does not wave back. He never waves back. That is fine. That is normal. Then something unusual. You cannot name it. There is no sound that is wrong, no movement that should not be there.
It is more like the absence of something. The village ahead is too quiet. The street that should have 2 or 3 people on it has nobody. The chai shop that is always open has its door pulled shut. You feel it in your back teeth. You are not the only one that noticed it. Your friends did too. You almost say something. You are reaching for your radio. Your mouth is opening. Then the world comes apart. The first shot is not what you expect. It is small, a flat crack from the left, and then before you can process it, there are 10 more from 3 directions and everyone is moving. You are down. You do not decide to go down, your body does it. You are behind a low mud wall and your heart is doing something it has never done before. Not in training, not in anything. It is slamming against your ribs like it wants out. Radio noise. Your sergeant's voice, controlled, giving positions. You answer. Your voice sounds normal. You do not know how. Kowalski is already returning fire. You see him to your right, behind a vehicle, rifle up, calm as a man checking his mail. Then you hear Reyes. Not words, just a sound. You turn and he is down in the open, not behind anything, in the middle of the road, on his side, and his hand is moving, but the rest of him is not. The distance between you is maybe 20 meters. 20 meters of open ground, with fire coming from the left and the right and somewhere above. You look at that ground. You look at Reyes. You look at the ground again. Somebody is yelling your name. Stay down! Stay down!
You couldn't stay down. You run as fast as your body and your instincts can carry you. Later, people will ask what you were thinking. You were not thinking. Thinking takes time, and there is no time. There is just Reyes on the ground and the space between you and him, and your legs already moving before your brain has voted on it. The ground kicks up around your boots. You hear it the way you hear things in moments like this. Loud, close, and completely unreal, like a sound effect in someone else's movie. You reach him. He is looking up at you. His eyes are open. He says your name. Just your name. You grab his vest. You start pulling. He is heavier than he should be. All of it is heavier. Your legs are wrong. Something is wrong with your left side, but you do not look at it, because if you look at it, you will stop, and you cannot stop. You pull him behind the wall. You drop down next to him. You press your hand against where he is bleeding, and you yell for a medic, and you keep your hand there, and you can feel his pulse under your palm, fast and light, like a bird. You talk to him. You do not remember what you say. You remember his eyes on your face. You remember trying to look calm because he is looking at you to know if he is okay, and if you look scared, he will know, and you cannot let him know. The medic gets there. You let go. Your hand is red. The fight is still happening. You pick your rifle up off the ground and you go back to it. It gets even worse. The ambush is bigger than anyone called. 3 positions, maybe 4. Your unit is pinned, and the vehicles are blocked, and the radio is in and out, and the reinforcements are 12 minutes away, and 12 minutes is a very long time. Hendricks is next to you. He is scared. You can see it. His breathing is wrong, too fast and too shallow, and his eyes keep going wide between shots. You put your hand on his shoulder, just for a second. You do not say anything. He looks at you. His breathing slows down. You go back to your sector. Then your sergeant goes down. Not the way Reyes went down. Your sergeant is there, and then he is not. He goes down so fast, between 1 second and the next. And somebody is yelling his name, and somebody else is saying, "Take command." And the voice saying, "Take command," is saying it to you. You. You are only 22 years old, and you are from a town nobody can find on a map, and 3 people are looking at you and waiting. Waiting for you to make decisions for them, waiting for you to move people, waiting for you to call positions. You get on the radio and your voice stays level. You give coordinates, and you call in a strike, and you say, "Danger close," which means the fire is going to land near enough to kill you too. But you say it anyway. When the strike comes in, the ground shakes. Dust fills everything. Your ears ring with the kind of ring that does not go away.
The fire from the left stops. That was when you get to breathe for the first time since 20 minutes ago.
The reinforcements finally arrive. The shooting stops. You sit down on the ground because your legs stop working at more or less the same time and you could not fight it. You sit in the dust, in the middle of a road in a country far from home, and you look at your hands. Your left side is bleeding. You knew something was wrong. A fragment, small. You did not feel it until now. Now you feel it. Reyes is alive. The medic got to him. He is being moved now, urgent, but alive. Your sergeant is not, and many others on the team. You sit with that for a moment. Not long, there is not time, but you sit to reflect with it. Your sergeant had a coffee mug that said, "World's okayest sergeant," and he drank out of it every single morning, and he complained about the coffee every single morning, even though the coffee was fine. He had been doing this for 14 years. He had 3 more months left in his deployment. 3 months, and now he's gone. Someone puts a bandage on your side. Someone else hands you water. You drink it. It is warm, and it tastes like plastic, but it is the best thing you have ever tasted at that moment. Hendricks sits next to you. He does not say anything. You do not say anything. You just sit there in the dust, and the quiet that comes after, that quiet. You will hear it for the rest of your life. They rotate you out. Wound care, debrief, a doctor who asks you questions in a careful voice and writes things down and tells you that what you are feeling is a normal response to an abnormal situation. You say yes. You nod. You answer all the questions correctly. You fly home. Your mother meets you at the airport. She hugs you so hard her hands shake. She smells like the same soap she has always used, and for some reason, that is the thing that gets you. You cry in the airport parking lot for 4 minutes, and then you stop, and you drive home. You sleep in your childhood bedroom. Your old posters are still on the walls, a band you liked when you were 15, a sports team, things from before. You stare at the ceiling. You think about the chai shop with the door pulled shut. You think about how you almost said something. You think about 3 months. The phone rings eventually, a number from Washington. They want to give you a medal. You sit with the phone in your hand for a long time. You say yes, because you do not know how to say no, because what would saying no even mean? You say yes, and you hang up, and you go back to staring at the ceiling.
Back in the room now, at the moment the president finishes speaking, the room applauds again, longer this time. Some people stand. You look out at all their faces. They are proud. They are moved. Some of them are crying, in the way people cry when they are watching something that makes them feel something good about humanity. You understand it. You do. You just cannot find yourself in their version of the story. Their version has a hero, a choice, a moment of courage that rises above the noise. Your version has Reyes on the ground and your legs moving before you decide anything. Your version has your hands on his vest, pulling while something tears open on your left side and you do not look at it. Your version has your sergeant falling faster than could move. Your version has your team broken and lying around lifeless. Your version has you sitting in the dirt afterward, unable to stand up, not from the injury, just from the weight of everything that just happened and everything that cannot be undone. Your version is brutal. Reyes is here today. He is in a wheelchair in the front row. His daughter is on his lap, 4 years old now, and she is bored by all of this and keeps trying to take his hat off his head. He catches your eye. He nods. That is the only part of this day that makes sense to you. That nod, those 2 seconds. Everything else is ceremony. They call this medals in this ceremony the highest honor a soldier can receive. You believe them. You are not ungrateful.
You understand what it means to the people in this room, what it means to your mother sitting in the third row in the blue dress she bought 2 weeks ago for this exact moment. You understand all of it. But the metal is cold, and the room is warm, and somewhere underneath all the applause and the flags and the clean marble floor, you are still on a road in the dirt with your hand pressed against your friend's chest, feeling his pulse go fast and light. You are still third in the line. The village is still too quiet. The chai shop door is still closed. You are still in the middle of the chaos and noise. You are always still there. They put the medal around your neck, and the room sees a soldier being honored. You feel the weight of it, and you remember a Tuesday. You remember a name you screamed that nobody in this room has ever heard. You remember exactly what bravery costs, and it was not glory. It was never glory.